The Champions League final between Real Madrid and Liverpool goes down in just a few days. And now's the perfect time to take a deep dive into how to bet this thing. And I have the perfect man for the job. Joining me now is Paul Carr, the director of content at True Media Sports and former ESPN researcher. Also, he's on the Expected Value podcast. Paul, thanks for joining me. Before we get into some of your best bets, because I do like a couple of them and I've already entered a few of them in, I want to know how you approach handicapping a final.
Finals are always a little different because they're a neutral site. So there's obviously no home field advantage or nothing really to factor in most of the time. And we all know the cliche that a final is cagey. My instinct is almost always like auto bet the under, just because finals tend to be that way. I don't always land on that eventually, but that's kind of my first instinct. So I always just try to, it kind of goes for any match, but I think even more so for a final. How's it going to play out? Just kind of what are all these possibilities? What do these teams tend to do? We know Liverpool tends to kind of press a little bit, especially early. We've seen Real Madrid and seemingly every game in Champions League come on strong late. So just trying to figure out what's going to happen. What are the tendencies of this team? Try to work through some of the matchups. Liverpool's fullbacks obviously press high. City and Chelsea found success getting in behind them somewhat. That could open up opportunities for Vinicius. So trying to just put together all these pieces. I kind of approach it like a big puzzle. What have we seen this year? What do we know about these teams? Make sure you know who's healthy. What's the form look like? Not necessarily from a results standpoint, but just kind of how they're playing, what sort of opportunities they're creating or allowing. So it's really just a big puzzle, I think, and just go through how will it play out. Always have to remember that extra time is a possibility here. It's an obvious thing in some ways, but I know. Look, I think everyone who's bet soccer has made this mistake at some point. You think you have these bets that are for the whole game regardless, but they end up being 90 minutes. Yeah. So you think you've won and you've lost, or you think you've lost and you won. I've made the mistake early in my days. And like I said, I'm sure everybody has at some point. So just kind of working through all these possibilities, trying to put the puzzle together.
Yeah, earlier on, or in my early soccer betting career, I got burned by that a lot, backing the team on the money line in the final. So that's one thing I wanted to get into. When I approach a final, I completely stay away from money line in terms of the winner's market because that only covers 90 minutes and what happens in injury time. So I start looking at, the market to lift the cup. And sometimes there's some good value there, and there is for this one. I mean, to me, this is a pick 'em game. I'm not sure if you feel that way. And I kind of look at some of the odds from different books, and obviously you see Liverpool closer to even money, so they have them as heavy favorites. But when I think a game is going to be a pick 'em at two teams that are pretty equal in terms of quality, I do believe that. I'm going to side with the plus money. Am I crazy for that?
I don't think so. I mean, that was basically my approach last season in the final when it was Man City Chelsea. Look, obviously, again, Man City was better over the course of the season, but Chelsea had played them. I think they beat them twice in the previous month or two. And both games were, pretty close regardless. And so there was a lot of value. Like last year, I think I played Chelsea at plus 340 to win in regulation. It obviously worked out. So these odds are not that drastic, but I agree with you that this game is closer than the odds indicate. And I've struggled with that because I've been betting against Real Madrid for a couple rounds, generally, obviously, not with much success, because all the numbers, and I'm a big numbers guy, all the numbers they pointed toward Chelsea. They pointed toward PSG. They pointed toward Man City. They point toward Liverpool. Liverpool's been better. And by any metric you can look at this season, Liverpool has been decently better. And so I understand why the odds are what they are. Liverpool's obviously, I think it's minus 190-ish to lift the trophy. Real Madrid's plus 135 to plus 150, something in that range. So I get it. But yeah, Real Madrid's got this magic that just you almost can't explain. I talked to Fernando Palomo about it on our podcast, and he's just said, he's covered them for a long time. And it's hard for me to kind of wrap my head around this a little bit as a numbers guy, but they've just got this belief, especially late in games, and they've got this ability to turn it up to 11. And it doesn't always make sense, but it seems to be there. So yeah, I generally agree with you that this game is closer than the lines indicate, even though I understand why the lines are what they are.
What betting markets do you stay away from when it comes to finals?
I don't know if there's anything I definitively avoid. I'll usually avoid laying a big number. I mean, that's not the case here, but you'll see sometimes if it's, I don't know, whatever, Man City against a mid-tier, lower-tier team in a cup final or something where it's a goal and a half, 2.5. Tend to stay away from those just because it kind of goes the whole cagey thing. Those don't come into play too much usually in the Champions League finals and that sort of thing. Liverpool Villarreal is a decent example. those games ended up, I think, a little closer, at least the first leg, than we thought they were going to be. So I don't know if there's anything I avoid. There's some I'll just check off automatically, as I'm not going to do that. And I think they just tend to be things like that things are bigger, things get out of hand. You can obviously get some great prices on whatever, Liverpool to score 3 goals or more, or Real Madrid to win by 2 goals or something like that. But I usually just kind of narrow it down pretty quickly to your, I don't know, more traditional or at least closer sorts of bets.
This Real Madrid team, I don't know how to describe them anymore. I guess predictably unpredictable, maybe.
Yeah.
You just don't know what you're going to get from them, but you know they have quality and they have the ability to come back. I mean, think about their road to the final. Chelsea, PSG, Manchester City. I don't think it could get more difficult than that.
No.
And now Liverpool. So you're playing, what, 4 of the best teams in the world?
Yeah.
And somehow they've made it to this point. A lot of people are saying that their luck is bound to run out. I just don't think so at the moment. It's hard to count them out, and that's why I see this as a pick'em game, Paul.
Yeah, I felt that way, that the luck is bound to run out for 3 rounds, and it hasn't yet.
Yeah,
and you know what, we saw
that boat.
We saw that first leg against PSG. They were outshot like 21-3. Looked like they had no interest in attacking at all, and PSG could have won by 2 or 3 goals, and just got the 1 goal at the very end. That obviously wasn't enough in the long run. So yeah, they've got something, and I want to say it was a John Mueller article on The Athletic that described basically Real Madrid is controlled or not so controlled chaos, especially late in the games when they need something. And against teams, your PSGs, your Chelseas, your Cities, your Liverpools that play a more controlled style, you can see, they're not necessarily deliberate, but they're intentional. They have these things they're trying to do. Broadly speaking, they're just used to playing in styles that are not as unpredictable, maybe. And so you throw Real Madrid into it, and it's the old, I don't know, bull in a china shop or whatever, analogy you want to use, where things just get weird. And Real Madrid is extremely comfortable in that. And we've seen it in every single round. Things get weird in the last half hour or so, and Real Madrid is Real Madrid, and they're very happy with it, and the other team tends to struggle. So I think there's something to that. I'm not entirely sure how to quantify it. But yeah, I think that's part of why I think Real Madrid has a better shot than most of the numbers indicate here.
For Liverpool, a couple key injuries to note. Thiago Alcantara and Fabinho, who might be, according to reports, expected to be fit. But if one or even both of those players are out of the midfield, I think it's a huge loss for Liverpool. I know earlier on in the season, when those two start together, those two Brazilian midfields start together, Liverpool don't really lose. So it is going to be a big loss. How much does that play into your thinking when backing Liverpool if you decide to do that?
Thiago especially, I think, is a factor. Like, you look at all their numbers this season. When he's not on the field, they just have less control of games. He's kind of that metronome in the midfield in a lot of ways. They allowed more shots. They allowed about half a goal more per 90 minutes when he was not on the field this season. So I think that's a big factor. You've got Real Madrid as Casemiro, who's kind of a wrecking ball in the midfield. And with no Thiago, he can be even more so. So yeah, I think those midfielders, Thiago especially, is a factor. And even if he does play, how healthy is he? Can he go 90 minutes or 120 minutes? I don't know. So yeah, to me, that's something. The pieces up top, if Mo Salah weren't going to play, that's obviously a loss. They also have some pieces they can kind of plug in with Diaz and Jota and Firmino and Mane, and they have plenty of attackers. They don't have another Thiago or Fabinho if it comes to that in the midfield. Obviously they have good players, but I think those two, and Thiago in particular, take him to another level. So if he's not there, that definitely ticks it toward Real Madrid a little more.
Yeah, I mean, Naby Keita can come into the midfield, but you never know with him. He can he can be known for a rash challenge here and there, and that's the last thing you want in the Champions League final. Let's talk about some of your bets, Paul. You like both teams to score. This is a market I usually stay away from because I'm like, this is, the classic, as you mentioned off the top, cagey, low-scoring affair. As we saw, in the Europa Conference League final, Jose Mourinho, Jose Mourinho, 1-0 to win that game. Maybe not the way to go here because both teams can score and probably will.
That was my thinking. I played this as soon as the market opened on it, and I got it minus 145. I've seen it vary everywhere from like minus 145 to like minus 190. So, as always, you got to shop around and find a good price. I just try to think. Obviously, both teams have plenty of good attackers, and we've seen what both teams can and will do if they need a goal. Real Madrid obviously has done this in every round. They just need a goal and they find a goal. They throw everyone forward. Liverpool had a similar thing just on the weekend against, I'm already blanking on, against Wolves in the last game of the Premier League season. They needed goals and they eventually got goals, and they've got the desperation and the ability to do it. So that's kind of it. Obviously there's maybe it goes 0-0 and it's late in regulation and no one's interested in scoring. But I just think the talent, one way or the other, one team's going to find a goal at some point, and then the other team is going to have to respond and will respond. Both defenses are decent. We talked about the Liverpool's fullbacks can leave space in behind, which Vinicius
Mhm.
Jr. and company could definitely run into. Real Madrid's defense is okay. It's not maybe what it used to be even just a few years ago with Varane and company. So yeah, I like both teams to score. I just think this could be, I don't know if it's going to be a crazy final, but I just think there's going to be desperation, and the team that needs a goal is going to find a goal.
Yeah, I think Vinicius and potentially Rodrigo, if he starts, can really take advantage of that Liverpool high line. What I noticed, Paul, I don't know if you saw this, but Liverpool over the past few weeks look really tired. They've been playing a lot of games, a lot of injuries. Against Wolves, they were, uncharacteristically sloppy.
Yeah.
And I think if that happens against Real Madrid, they can be in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
Another bet you have here, something I didn't even look at, but second half as highest scoring half. And I think that's so smart because these games almost start off like a boxing match where you have two boxers feeling out
Yep.
each other, and then they really start going into it in the second half when goals are needed, especially let's say if Real Madrid score in the first half. Now Liverpool are going to press and they have the ability to find that goal.
Yeah, it's what every Real Madrid game has basically been in Champions League, and Liverpool for that matter. So you look
Yeah.
at the 12 games they played in Champions League so far between them. More second half goals were scored in 10 of the 12 games collectively. And the goals number, for Liverpool games, it was 14 goals compared to 6 in the first half. Madrid was 15 in the first half 15 in the second half compared to 8 in the first half. And yeah, it's exactly what you said. These games tend to be a little bit cagey. We know Liverpool will probably press a little higher early on and harder. But Real Madrid can handle that. It's not like they haven't seen something like that before. They've seen it in almost every round of the Champions League so far. And yeah, in the second half, I just think the desperation comes in and things are going to open up. So yeah, maybe you get a goal, maybe 2 in the first half at most, I think, and you can easily get 2 or 3 if things get really wacky. I'm not saying I think it's going to be nuts, but realistically, maybe 1 goal in the first half and a couple in the second half. It just feels very much how this game could go. And of course, again, 90-minute bets, regulation only. The extra time doesn't come into that. So yeah, I like maybe it's a 2-1 type of game one way or the other. Maybe it's a 1-0 type of game with the late goal, something like that.
Well, we've
Obviously, I
seen
hope not
some
from both
finals
teams.
of Liverpool, especially Liverpool and Chelsea.
They get weird.
Go back to the Carabao Cup final. So many chances. I'm sure I didn't look at it, but I'm sure the expected goals were through the roof.
Oh,
and that
was
ends
over.
0-0. And that's the thing with these finals. They're so unpredictable that way that anything can happen. I mean, if you watched the Conference League final yesterday, Feyenoord could have had, a couple of
Good
goals,
chances.
but, posts and saves. And sometimes it just doesn't go your way in the final.
Yep.
Another one you got here, Paul, Real Madrid plus a half. I have them at +1 at -135. No push. I don't like the no push, but I like the odds.
Yeah. I think, like we've said, I lean Real Madrid, and it took me a while to kind of figure out where I wanted to land on them. You could play them to lift the trophy. I think I would want at least +150 to do that. So you're looking at a 40% return, or 40% it needs to happen to get your money's worth. So if you can find it up there, I don't mind that. I wouldn't go to like +135, or it seems to be dropping a little bit toward Real Madrid. Although some of the other the game numbers seem to be, the 90-minute numbers seem to be going the other way. You could look at Real Madrid like +250-ish to win, +270 to draw. I don't mind those. They're not bad. I just kind of landed on, I can't decide which one of those I think is more likely. And Liverpool, they have a little more depth, especially attacking. So, if it gets to extra time, they're probably favored a little bit. Although, with Real Madrid being Real Madrid, who knows? But I just think Real Madrid is more than likely to keep this close.
Yeah.
Will they win it in 90 minutes? I'm not sure. But if they're down a goal late, are they likely to get that goal? Sure seems like it from everything we've seen from them this season. So I ended up playing them, plus half a goal. Don't mind playing them almost any other way, as long as you're getting the right price either.
Looking at the anytime goal scorer markets, there's a lot of players you can really look at. I kind of narrowed it down to either side. I have Salah +140. I didn't take these. I'm just mentioning them. Salah +140, Mane +170, Karim Benzema +150, who I think in this market probably offers the best value because if Real Madrid score, it's probably going to be the Champions League's top scorer.
Yeah, if you can get Benzema at +150, I would go with that. The books I was looking at was like +105, +110. And I might end up pulling the trigger on it, but I seriously considered that one as well. I think he scored in 5 or 6 of the games in Champions League. Now, a couple of those were extra time, which probably doesn't count toward your bet. depending on your book. But it was still, I want to say, 3 out of 6 Champions League games he scored in regulation. He takes penalties, which is something that you always want to have for an anytime goal scorer if you can. It gives you that kind of extra bonus in the back pocket, and Real Madrid's been pretty adept at drawing penalties here. So yeah, if you can get plus 150 on Benzema, I like that quite a bit. Anything plus money, I'm thinking about.
Yeah, and there's also, this one's a bit of a stretch, but Rodrigo, he seems to score goals in these Champions League games. I'm not sure if he's going to start. I don't bet players, and I'm sure you're the same way, who don't start because you just don't know if they're going to come off the bench. You don't know how the game's going to play out. But at plus 400, I mean,
I was thinking about that too.
Right? It's got to be worth the shout.
In some ways, if he doesn't start, this sounds kind of counterintuitive, but if he doesn't start, I almost like the bet better.
Yes.
Because
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. You assume he's going to come in at the 60th, 70th minute when he's fresh. And we saw what he can do when he's fresh. We saw it against Man City. So it is a little odd, but it does, I think, make sense. You'd almost rather have him with fresh legs against a tired Liverpool defense for 20 or 30 minutes than you would for 70 to 90 minutes right from the start when we know things are probably going to be a little cagey early on. So yeah, plus 400 for Rodrigo is not terrible either.
Yeah, and when it comes to these bets, it's low risk, high reward. You're not hammering these bets with big money. Right. Another player I have here who's most likely going to start for Real Madrid. Another player who could take advantage of that Liverpool high line, Vinicius Jr. plus 280.
Plus 280 is pretty tempting price as well. Like we talked about it, the fullbacks will get up. We know Vinicius Jr. likes to get down the wings. We saw it we see it almost every game, but especially we saw what he did against the Man City game. When he torched Fernandinho down the left side. And Fernandinho's not playing left back here or right back for that matter. But Vinicius Jr.'s got the pace. He's got the partnership up front with Benzema. So yeah, the pieces are there just from style of play, from the fact that he's going to get opportunities. Plus 280 is a pretty good price on him to score too.
Yes, Paul, thanks so much for doing this. This is going to be a fascinating final. It really is a really entertaining one, I think. And there's definitely some money to be made. There's value on the board, as we both pointed out. Guys, make sure you follow Paul on Twitter at Paul Carr. And don't forget, he's the director of content for True Media Sports. And make sure you check out the Expected Value podcast as well. Thanks again, Paul.
Thanks, Albert. Appreciate it.